What's going on, guys? Dan from SSG bringing you another Edison format deck profile. This time I'm profiling my Diva Synchro deck. It's reminiscent of the old Cat Synchro decks, but I think we've sort of aged out of Rescue Cat, so we're going to replace it with Diva. And this is a really linear deck that just does a lot, and yeah, it's pretty interesting. So let's get right into it. We have the full 3 copies of Hamster. This is going to be one of our main starters, of course, to go fetch one of our 3 copies of Ryko. These are just like solid cards that were played in the old Cat Synchro style of decks. They get you going, they let you interact with your opponent, which is very powerful, and I think they're just really strong cards. They get cards in the grave, they just get +1s, and then they leave something behind so that you can synchro with the Deep Sea Diva. So we have the full 6 here. And then we're going to go with 3 copies of Gravekeeper Spy. Now, Spy is one of those cards that I kind of like a lot. It walls quite a bit of things in the format, but it also sets you up for an instant Diva play, which is really strong. And I think you could add the Descendant. I always played Descendant back in the day in Edison. I would always run the Descendant in my Rescue Cat variants. However, I think I just wanted to minimize the bricks in this deck, and I think Descendant can be a brick at times. But I do think it's a powerful card that is really strong. So I think if you want to add the Descendant, you can. But just the 3 spies works out just fine. You want to draw it early, and having the 3rd one can come up, as we'll get to a little bit later. Then we have the full 3 copies of Deep Sea Diva. This is just the new gen Rescue Cat. This card is just really powerful. It's just a normal summon that brings out 2 tuners, lets you synchro with both of those Gravekeeper Spies with the Ryko that's floating around, or the Hamster and Ryko that are floating around once they attack into your Hamster. So that's just going to be the main combo line that we're really going for. And there's a lot of cool things you can do with brionac as well to bounce your own Diva back to your hand, which we'll get into. And of course, we have Spine Gilman to combo with the 3 Divas. We want to just be able to have access to Mistworm, have access to catastor, as well as Magical Android. Card is very powerful. The Diva is just a really strong card in this format, and it is quite good. Then we have 3 copies of Caius. Now, this is what I'm talking about when we're talking about like a linear deck, right? We have the Diva and Caius as our sort of payoffs for playing those flip monsters, and it's just sort of linear, right? We want to set one of our flip monsters, get some value out of it, whether it be Spy or Hamster, and then we are going to then sack the value for Caius or Synchro Fodder and do sort of a combo play with the Deep Sea Diva. And just being very linear is really strong, and I think Diva and Caius are great payoffs for these type of flip effect monsters, and yeah, that's why we're running all 3 Caius. Now, I've been splashing this hero engine in a lot of my Ryko Caius decks. So we have the Stratos, the 2 Malicious, and the Infernal Prodigy. Really strong. I think just being able to search this off of Stratos is really powerful, just giving you access to Caius when you don't have another way to float a monster. I think Malicious is extremely powerful when you're milling it off of Ryko. And I just like this small engine. It's really tight. It's really compact, and it just does powerful things, and adding Stratos to your deck is amazing as well, giving you more starters, and just really strong card. I think the package just does a lot for this deck. Of course, making very strong combos with Malicious and Diva is something you always want to be doing, but just these 4 cards, no Miracle Fusion, no nothing like that. You just want to be as consistent as possible, and I've been liking this little package in my Ryko Caius decks quite a bit. Onto some boss cards, we have the Gorz, of course, and Dark Arm Dragon. You know, Dark Arm Dragon, you can control your grave in some ways, so you just want to be able to play it, and Gorz is just really powerful. Of course, big comeback plays in combination with Caius or just by itself. That is it for the monsters. Pretty tight package there. And then we go on to spells. 3 copies of Upstart Goblin. And I just want to be as linear as possible. I want to get into my flip effect monsters. I want to find my Deep Sea Diva. And Upstart just gets us there. And I like these linear style of decks that can run triple Upstart. A lot of times I have trouble finding room for 3 Upstart in my decks in Edison format. But this is one that's very like, we want specific things on specific turns, and then we don't really want much else in the deck, right? We just want Upstart to go find those things and be as linear and consistent as possible, and Upstart gets the job done. On to 3 copies of Book of Moon. Now, because our game plan is really centered around these flip effect monsters, we want to be able to reuse them when we don't have our payoffs. When we don't have our Caius or our Deep Sea Diva, we want to be able to actually get more value out of them, and flipping Rykos up and down is very strong. Of course, Hamster, very powerful when you get multiple triggers off of that. And of course, we have the 3rd Gravekeeper Spy that we can go fetch if we end up booking the 2nd Spy down to get even more value and go for even bigger plays in the future, but also just being able to control the game with those cards. So 3 Book of Moon, just a really interactive card that also lets us enable our game plan and kind of grind our opponent 1 for 1. We then go 2 copies of Pot of Avarice. I think you could even push up to 3 with this card, but I just want the least amount of bricks as possible. This card is enabled really early in the game because all of our monsters get multiple monsters out of the deck, whether it be Ryko milling random monsters into the graveyard, Stratos searching for a monster. We have the Deep Sea Diva. If you sink into a catastor with the Spine Gilman, that's 3 monsters in grave already. You have the Spies getting 2 monsters, Hamster getting Ryko into milling more. A lot of ways to enable this card in the early game that we're going to run 2 and just put all of our Divas back, put our engines back into the deck, get value, and just keep playing 1 for 1 and getting those combo pieces back in the deck. So very strong card here, 2 Pot of Avarice. We have then Heavy Storm MST, standard removal, let us get our big plays off. We have Allure of Darkness, of course. Having a random Spy or a Caius we can't summon in our hand, really strong. Just get rid of it. Essentially, just trade some cards away. Of course, we can search our Infernal Prodigy off of Stratos and just get rid of it for kind of a pot of greed. So Allure is just going to be really strong in these decks. And of course, we have 1 copy of Brain Control here. Just really, really strong. I mean, card's just innately powerful. Just can kill our opponent. Of course, we have Diva and Caius to get rid of the monsters that we take. And that's just going to be enough. So, no Mind Control. I think you could play it. I like Mind Control a little bit better in the Rescue Cat versions of these decks because, like, I think that the tuners, you really need a way to utilize them, whereas the Deep Sea Diva can just utilize itself with in combination with Spine Gilman, so you don't actually need to, like, kind of max out on on these type of, like, take your opponent effects. I just like the Brain Control. It's really powerful. Yeah. Onto some traps we want to interact in some way. We have 2 copies of Bottomless Trap Hole, just an excellent card in the format. I then have 2 copies of the Wing Blast, just to discard the malicious and also just interact, you know. I think this deck is really good at taking tempo with 2 level 6 synchro monsters. After you like flip a Spy, summon a Diva, you have 2 big synchro monsters, and then this card can just blow people out of the game once you have tempo. So just keeping them on the back foot and just pushing those cards in for lethal is very strong. So you don't mind going down a card in that sense, but also, you know, sending malicious to the grave is always going to be good as well. We then have 1 copy of Solemn Judgment and 1 copy of Trap Stun. These cards just help make your push go through. I love Trap Stun in these style of decks where you're kind of playing this, like, 1-for-1 grindy plan with, like, your Rykos and stuff, and then out of nowhere you need that inevitability, you need that combo push to really take the game over, and Trap Stun just makes sure it goes through, and it's just really strong in that sense. So that's the main deck. We're going to go on to the extra deck here. We have Armory Arm, of course. We can make that with Ryko and Diva. We then have 2 5s in Android and Catastor, very important for the Diva plays. Then for our 6s, we have Goyo and Brionac. Brionac is really powerful because it gives you a way to discard the malicious mid-combo. So, like, if they attack into your Spy, you get another one. Then on your turn, you go Diva, bring out Diva. You can sync with the first Spy and Diva into this. Then you discard malicious out of your hand to get a level 8 synchro, and then you'll have, like, a level 8 synchro, Brionac, and Spy in play, and that's just a really powerful push. One other card we get to play because Spy is in our deck, we have 1 copy of the Tempest Magician here. Really strong card, just kind of like can burn our opponent out if we ever have enough cards to do so. And yeah, you can make it with Spy plus a level 2 tuner, so we're going to play it. On to some 7s. We have Black Rose and Ancient Fairy. They don't come up too often, but the side deck helps us make these cards, so we're going to play them. And then we have Stardust Dragon, Colossal Fighter, of course. And then we have Dark End Dragon. We can make this with Malicious plus Diva, so we're going to play it. Card's incredible. We have Thought Ruler Archfiend. We have Red Dragon Archfiend. And then we have Mistworm of Curse. The card comes up quite a bit because of Spy and Hamster. They stay in play, and then we get Diva into Spine Going and make the Mistworm. So we can do it that way. Then we have Chimera Tech for the Cyber Dragons on the sideboard. And of course, Cyber Dragon, really strong card. 2 in the sideboard. It's really good. It helps you make the level 7s for the Diva, which is very strong. Also, just like a great sideboard card. Everyone knows that. 2 copies of DD Crow. Just standard stuff here. I'm electing to play 2 copies of Vanity's Fiend in the side. Now, I like Vanity's Fiend in this deck specifically because of the reliance on the flip monsters, because it just gives you, like, another way to interact with the opponent and kind of just lock them out of situations. And it's really easy in the early turns to take control of the game with this card in this deck specifically with, like, you know, Spy and Hamster, because you can, like, say they attack your Hamster, you go get Ryko, you pop whatever threat they have, and then you sack the Ryko for the Vanity's Fiend into an empty board, and that is just really powerful. Being able to hit for 24, and then they don't have a board is very strong. Being able to, without being able to special summon, they might have a hard time coming back from that. Onto spells. 1 copy Giant Trunade. You just want this against the decks like Gladiator Beast that just play a bunch of traps. You really want those big pushes to go through with Diva, and this card just helps you enable them. We have 3 copies of Pulling the Rug. I love this card. It's been performing extremely well for me. Let me know how it's been performing for you guys, because this card's just really strong, and I like to play 3 in decks that you really need your things to go off. When you're setting cards like Hamster and Spy, you really need them to resolve, and having them get caius or rise is just so bad for you. So I think having the 3 access to the full 3 in the sideboard is just really powerful, and I like to play it at 3 in the decks that really need their engines to go off. We have 2 copies of Dust Tornado, just more back row removal, get those Royal Oppressions out of there. 2 copies of Deep Prison, you can side more into a controlling deck with the 2 Deep Prisons. And then, of course, the last card would not be an SSG profile without it. Trap Dust Shoot. Let's draw this card. Let's be way better than our opponents can ever imagine to be. We'll be the best duelists in the room. So that is about it, guys. Let me know what you guys thought about the deck in the comment section below. This deck's pretty sweet. I think it just does some sweet things. It's very reminiscent of the old Rescue Cat Synchro decks, which I find to be pretty awesome. I played Cat Synchro for like quite a while back in the day during Edison format. So I think this deck's just really powerful. It's very linear, and it's modernized. You know, you have upstarts, you have Diva instead of Cat. A lot of just linear things you can do in this deck. So that is about it, guys. Without further ado, this is Dan V from SSG, signing out.